Hello, everyone. You're listening to Lipstick and Leather, and right now, in front of me, over Zoom, is Mr. J. Pepper from Tigertailz. How's your day treating you?
Yeah, hi. I'm good, Brian. Thanks, man. Yeah, all good.
Very, very exciting. All right, now I love the new single "Can't Stop the Rock." How did the band discover new singer Ashley Edison?
Well, we were kind of wrapped up this time last year, as in the band was pretty much over because we'd fired our previous singer after a whole episode that's best not discussed. And I just thought, well, that's me. I'm done with it. I thought we can't be recruiting anyone else again after so many lineup changes. And as always happens with these things, we had a number of people contact us and apply for the job, if you like. That always happens when somebody leaves the band, but for one reason or another, there wasn't anyone particularly suitable, and that was it. I just kind of left it where it was, and then just out of the blue, Ashley came in and sort of got in touch, and even then, I was still like, well, I mean, clearly his voice was head and shoulders above anything else that we'd had, come near the band, and but I still felt that things weren't right, and contacted him and just said, I don't think the band's going to move forward, but all credit to him. He came back about a month later and said, I think we should, have a chat about this. And that moved on to him coming down. And once he started singing the songs in the studio, it was like, yeah, that kind of works. We need to do something with this. And that's kind of what's basically led us to where we are now, I guess.
Awesome. Now, were you familiar with Ashley's previous band, Power Quest, before him joining Tigertailz?
I could lie and say I was, but shamelessly, no. And it's even worse than that. Not only I'd not heard of Power Quest, or actually, I'd never knew there was even a genre of music called power metal. I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I'm like super old, and I only listen to like old music now. I don't really listen to anything new. So yeah, shame on me. I didn't. So it was all like, yeah, and to be honest, that I suppose is relevant because often when we have people apply, we are or at least aware of somebody that from because generally we you mix in the same circle. So if somebody's going to apply for the band, quite often you think, oh yeah, he's from such and such band, or at least you can look at them and think, oh okay, yeah. But actually, I had no idea, and we didn't know anyone who was connected with him or the band. It's an entirely different tower, if you like, of music that like I said, I didn't know existed, but even operates in a very different way. And it was, and we had some pretty frank discussions about when we thought, okay, this needs to move forward, but we were very, apprehensive about how people would actually take Ashley joining the band because clearly, they were expecting the usual kind of visual kind of guy, um, and that wasn't his thing, and not his thing, but he's the way he's been received has just been incredible. People have just taken to him immediately, and obviously his voice, speaks for itself. But just the band as a whole, people have just lapped it up, which I'm really pleased about. So, yeah, it's been crazy, crazy few months.
Awesome. Now, will the new album be a best of with re-recorded and new tracks?
Well, I mean, the best of kind of idea started. We started kicking around. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, we've been going like 40 years or something. It was like the natural progression was to do that. We've never done a best of, but when we started looking at it, it was going to be, oh, we'll just release a best of album. So we thought it'd be quick, but we wanted to redo the songs, re-record them, so it immediately becomes a mammoth piece of work rather than just compiling tracks you already have, which a lot of bands do. But we thought because Ashley's got such a great take on the songs, it would be really worth, re-recording them. So that's what we're going to do. But when we started looking at one album, it was very clear quickly that one album isn't going to be enough. So it's going to be a volume one and volume two. So as I say, that immediately becomes like a major project. So we are working on it. It's sort of in progress. But I don't want people waiting for, another 6, 12 months or longer for that to be finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to release two new tracks now in the next few months, in the next July, August, September, and that's going to be a 4-track EP, brand new tunes, two new tunes on the A side that nobody's heard with actually brand new songs, and on B side, but you can't stop the rock and 6X that we did with him to introduce him to the fans. So if you're a fan of this, you're not going to have to wait too much longer to have brand new music. So people will get that, and then we'll probably maybe do a couple of shows to support that, and then the best of volume one and volume two probably next year. But also in the background, we're working new songs for a new album as well. So there's a lot going on. It's just as you know the way the whole scene is and social media. you've got to constantly feed the machine. So we can't just say, hi, we're here, you're a new band, we'll see you in 12 months when we've got something ready to release. So that's the reason for getting the new stuff out there. I mean, it's these songs we're releasing, like the new single, You Can't Stop the Rock and 6 have been so massively successful for us, in terms of the reach to people across the world. They make it worthwhile, and like I said, I don't want people waiting around for another 12 months while we get something together. So that's coming out in the next 2 months.
Awesome. Looking forward to that.
Cool.
Now, Frontier signs a lot of the hard rock bands that I personally love. Have they ever expressed interest in signing Tigertailz either in the past or currently?
No. That's a quick answer. I think we had some contact maybe a few years ago. But no, we are happy doing everything ourselves these days. We don't really go chasing anything. We don't need anything. We're completely self-sufficient. We're not like a young band. We're like a legacy band. We're not trying to make it. We are what we are, and we do what we do, and we're financially self-sufficient. I basically fund the band. I don't need, we don't need anyone else's help really to get stuff out there. So I feel we serve our fans the best. So, I mean, I want to never say never, but if somebody wants to come to it, I think that they could do a job for us, and it's never been about the money. That's not what it's about for me. It's about what's doing best for the band to promote the product that we're going to release. So as it stands, no, we haven't had any contact with Frontiers or anybody else. So who knows?
Now, back in the day, MCA, Capitol, Elektra, and Epic were interested in signing Tigertailz. What made the band decide to sign to Music for Nations?
Oh, it was such a long saga. Basically, Music for Nations got in there quicker than anybody else. We did get offered another deal before that with another independent, but that we didn't take that. But the Music for Nations, and you got to remember at the time, Music for Nations had Metallica, Poison, Wasp. They had a pretty hefty, weighty catalog. They just signed Wasted at the time. The remains of UFO, Joe Satriani. They had some pretty prolific acts on that label, and even though they were an independent, when you've just released, Metallica's first three albums, Ride the Lightning and Justice for All. I mean, that's the Master of Puppets. It's a pretty heavyweight label, and they were small enough to, we really did, dig what was going on with them. So, but then the majors came in after that, and that's when it got really smelly because I think, and I still don't know to this day, who knows. We went out because we were then signed to Music for Nations and also managed by Martin Hooker, who owned and ran the label. But then we were going out to dinner with these people, MCA and Epic, I don't know, and they wanted to sign us. And then, it would give you all these promises, and they'd go away and you'd hear nothing. But I don't know whether Music for Nations were asking too much money for us. I don't know. It didn't happen, and that's the end of it. And we ended up signing eventually to a Japanese company called Amuse Inc. in the US. For that, was it fourth album? And that all went pear-shaped as well. But that's just the way it goes in this business. It's a dreadful business.
Now, how did Tigertailz get Uriah Heep singer Pete Goldbley to contribute background vocals on Berserk?
Good question. Really good question. Wow. Well, okay, this is one of those rock and roll stories. It's just you couldn't write it. We were in a studio in recording Berserk called Great Linford Manor, and it was exactly like a mansion, basically in the middle of England, in its own like park, a really amazing place. And we were in there for like months, 3 months or something. And every day, the studio manager, the owners would bring somebody in and around. They would knock on the control room door. They say, "Is it okay to come in and show somebody around?" Because obviously they were wanting to win more business, and generally they were producers or musicians or bands. And this happened one day, and the manager of the studio came in, and he had a guy with him, and they just had a quick look in the control room and then left. I wasn't really paying attention, and me and Pepsi were sat there, and with Chris Tangarides, who was producing our record, and as these guys left, Chris said, "You know who that was, don't you?" And I was like, "No." He said, "That's Pete Goldbley from Uriah Heep." Now, at this time, me and Pepsi were like the biggest Uriah Heep fans because we completely loved Abominog, Head First, and those three albums they did with Pete Goldbley. We were a bit young to be into the previous stuff, but they'd had that renaissance and real resurgence with Abominog and Head First. But they brought Pete in as well, and John Sinclair, who made it sound really like amazing. We just loved the production. So I literally ran out the door of the studio, ran upstairs, and just almost leapt on Pete Goby and said, "Mate, we're like the biggest fans in the world. Would you come and sing on our records?" And he couldn't do it right there and then, but he came back about like a week later. So yeah, it was like a total fanboy moment. It was amazing.
Nice. Now, Tigertailz mascot Clint, was there ever talks of him to be in toys, stickers, comics, etc., just kind of like marketing the character out there?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously Pepsi's design and creation, and we still use him now. The images are still those original designs that Pepsi, drew. Um, and yeah, it's been talked about. I mean, we keep the branding to ourselves. I mean, people ask to use it now and again. The cuddly toy thing's been mentioned a few times, but it's like really expensive. And generally, those companies they want to do runs of like thousands, tens of thousands and things, which makes it a bit, this very expensive game. I know it looks simple enough, but it's actually quite expensive to create those things. So yes and no, but it's, you'd have to have some pretty major, company behind that to push that forward.
The bath bombs are super cool.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, they're amazing, and they're a friend. Ironically, again, that the connection there is that the lady who's designed them is actually related to Jem Howard, who was one of the guys who ran Music for Nations and used to tour with Metallica, and he just bizarrely lives about 5 miles down the road from me now, which is just nuts the way this industry works out in the end. So it was his niece, I think. She kindly, and they're all handmade, and she's just done such an amazing job on them. They're fantastic.
Not many bands, in my opinion, have pulled off a great sequel to an album. Now, Tigertailz did. What made you guys decide to do a Berserk 2.0, a follow-up to Berserk?
Well, I mean, it was that where we came back around in 2005, six, whatever that was. I can't remember that time, and we weren't actually looking to make a new record or anything. And a company I think wanted there was that kind of it was the darkness really, at least over here in Europe, that re-energized the rock music scene. And we had a label, I think, come to us, Demolition Records, who wanted to do a new record. And then quickly after that, it was Sanctuary with the Iron Maiden kind of company. They were reissuing a lot of bands, catalog of albums, and they wanted to do that as well of our stuff. But we thought perhaps, so we'll do that, but we thought maybe a new record. And so Berserk 2, we did some new tracks for it, but it also became, I think, was there stuff from Wasbones on there? I can't remember now, but yeah, it was a bit of an odd mix, but we weren't kind of we were together but not together and kind of going but not going. And it was just after that came out that then suddenly, we started getting offered like really big festival appearances, and it was like all of a sudden it was like, whoa, okay, we're back on again, and kind of got a bit more enthusiastic about it. Because me and Pepsi particularly wasn't really up for doing the whole getting back together thing. He and I sat down and he wasn't up for it at all. So we came to a compromise about how we would do it, and we said we didn't want it taking over our lives again, and that's how we've run it ever since. We don't let it become everything anymore. We know where the span sits, and we take the best bits out of it.
Now, for a glam band to cover Megadeth and Metallica and pull it off to a T like you guys did, pretty impressive for sure. Did you ever hear feedback from the Metallica or Megadeth camp?
We did actually. Jem, the guy I mentioned, Jem Howard, so he was Martin Hooker's sidekick at Music for Nations. Jem was also Metallica's tour manager through those, that early period, through all those mega albums. And yeah, he played, I think, Kirk Hammett, Creeping Death, and yeah, he liked it. I don't know whether he was just being nice, but he said he did enjoy it, which was cool. So I don't think Dave Mustaine would have necessarily wanted to hear it. Perhaps he did meet him once, and he was saying, let's just say he wasn't the nicest person in the world. There you go.
Okay, interesting. Now, I love all the cover songs you guys did. Now, live, you guys would cover sometimes the Osmonds' Crazy Horse, Sex Pistols' Friggin' in the Riggin', Ace of Spades, Detroit Rock City, Fight for Your Right to Party, and Judas Priest's Painkiller. Did you ever record studio versions of any of these tracks?
I don't remember the Painkiller. We've never done that, I don't think. Did we ever record? I don't think we've
Exciter.
ever.
Sorry, that's my bad.
Excited. Well, we were going to that. In fact, that what you mentioned, the Metallica and Megadeth B-sides, we're going to also include Exciter and the version from Unleashed in the East. And when we got in the studio, yeah, it wasn't happening. Let's just say recording wise. So that got scrapped, which is a shame because it's one of my favorite songs. Certainly my favorite Priest song, and I think it would be an awesome cover to do. But the others, I don't think we ever recorded. On at least I can't remember. Oh, we did actually. We did do Crazy Horses. I think there's a bonus track on the live Berserk album back maybe 10 years ago, I think. But not so sure about the others. And Friggin' in the Rigging was just a fun thing to do live, because it was the last thing that people would expect us to be doing. So we did it on the Berserk tour as just a bit of fun, and people got it, so it was cool.
I could imagine Ashley singing a crazy, amazing version of Exciter if you guys ever decide to revisit that idea.
Yeah, I mean, the guys are always, because everybody wants to play their favorite covers. I mean, my view is when we did those covers, Metallica and Megadeth, it made sense. It was kind of a cool thing to do because it was the last thing on earth anyone would have expected us to do, So when you go and do a cover, or even if it's live, they like, oh, let's play them live, and I'm like, well, not really. That was then, it made sense. Now you need to put a complete swerve ball. It needs to be something so right field, or not the thing anyone expects. I'll give you an example. We played with Velvet Revolver back a few years ago, many years ago, and they came on for the encore. Now, no one was expecting a cover, but what they Slash then broke into was like "Wish You Were Here" by Pink Floyd. Now that's cool because that's the last thing on earth anyone was going to expect that band to play, So he starts playing that intro riff, down, 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 and I was just sold. I was like, wow. Now that's cool, and I think if you're going to do a cover, it should be something that isn't obvious. Let's say.
That makes sense. Now, in the 90s, why did the band decide to change the name to Wasbones?
Oh, that was purely for legal reasons. When the whole thing with the Wasbones album fell apart with the Japanese company, they were based in America, called Amuse Inc., but they were a major media corporation from Japan. They came over. That album was just about to come out, and they came over one day and just closed the entire company down in the US, in LA, New York, everywhere. And we were victims of that. It was nothing to do with us, or it was purely at a way higher level. We still to this day don't know what the decisions were behind it, but it wasn't. Our album was finished and it was coming out. We were like a month or less than a month, weeks away from that record coming out. And then when they closed the company, you got to remember back then there was no internet or even mobile phones or email. We were left with just trying to contact someone in Japan who didn't really speak English, and we were just told, the rights to your record are with us, and you can't do anything with it. So we were like, okay, and we couldn't go out and play as even our own name. So we went out and played under a different name, which was Wasbones, which was going to be the name of the album. We only did a few gigs. I think we did the Marquee in London. I can't remember if we played anywhere else. But so that's the reason for that. Yeah, it was just legal reasons.
Any chance of bringing back Tigertailz TV?
Oh, I don't know if that's relevant now, with the way we all do things on social media. You and I talking on this kind of thing, and this will go out. I think the kind of Tigertailz TV thing was okay at that time, but like now, I think the way content is just continuous. It needs to just be flowing all the time, and nobody wants that kind of heavyweight sort of stuff. It takes too long. It's a bit like recording music and producing. It takes too long to create. So I don't think so. I think unfortunately social media has superseded that.
Now, I love the track Tigertailz covered Now You're On Your Own, of course, written by Mark Barrett, and China Rogue was the band, Stevie's band. What made you guys decide to do a version of it?
Oh wow! That was back. I think it was actually recorded for the Young and Crazy album. It was part of those sessions because that whole album was recorded before we signed to Music for Nations. We actually did that album, and that track was on it as part of the whole list of tracks. It was recorded by done under when we were signed to Tokyo Blades Management. They put us in the studio to record all that stuff, so it was done then. But when it came to doing the finished album, it didn't make the cut for whatever reason. I think just because maybe it'd been out before or like a demo or something. I can't honestly remember, but yeah, it was Stevie's. It was a good song, at the time. But yeah, it didn't actually appear on the record, unfortunately.
Now, prior to being Tigertailz, did Stage Fright, Tosh, or Shore Dogs record any material?
Oh, we did demos, yeah. I think I may have one under Stage Fright, I think. I don't know. It's nothing that anyone would ever want to hear. I know fans always go, I want to hear. You don't. You don't want to hear that. There's nothing there for you. So, yeah, there are some really rough demos, but I don't think, yeah, they're not for public consumption, let's say.
Now, you sang on In for the Kill and In the Arms of Mary. Any plans to do any more singing or maybe a solo album sometime?
Oh, well, that's what I was getting on with before Ashley came along. Uh, yeah, and I don't think I've got any kind of voice to, as a lead vocalist. But then on the other hand, I think, who has it? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I kind of exhausted everything I wanted to do with Tigertailz, and that was another reason for like just leaving it where it was last year. I thought maybe a best of album we'd do that at some point, but I didn't think any new material would make sense. So, but now we have a singer who can do that. I think it does make sense. But I mean, I still don't have really any interest in recreating that kind of 80s kind of sound. We did it on that last single, the new single, You Can't Stop the Rock.
Mm-hmm.
A very intentional reason to do that. But I can assure you the next two songs are way different to that, because the band needs to move on musically, and they are very much more musical. One of them is quite heavy and quite like a concept song about Vikings and stuff, very different. Suits Ashley's voice a lot more, probably nearer that kind of power metal thing. It's that big metal kind of and then the other one is like completely different again. It's like a Black Crowes kind of soulful vibe, Aerosmith kind of thing going on. So they're very much, the musicality is going to change here for people. And I don't know whether people are going to dig it or not. They may not, but you got to move on, and we're not going to keep regurgitating the same crud. You know what I mean? That's not for me. And I appreciate fans of the band, but we got to move forward and do stuff that's interesting. I think nobody wants to hear just the same old stuff all again. At least I don't. And from a creative point of view, it has to rock your world. Otherwise, you can't get ahead in writing the song. It takes a lot of effort to do that, and so you've got to be interested in it. So I hope people dig these two new tracks. We'll see.
Now, there was talks of a Tigertailz live DVD to be released in 2017. Of course, the Pepsi Tate Memorial Show. Will this ever be released? And maybe will Shoe Collector be a part of it also?
Well, we sort of, the way things are and the way stuff goes out on YouTube and social media again has made that kind of DVD thing, because these things are so expensive to produce. I know fans, some fans still want it, but the numbers you sell of them are quite small in comparison to what the costs are. They cost so much to get them. Same with vinyl and all these things, CD. Trying to keep everyone happy with that, because most people are just release it on, through YouTube or something. So we have released a couple of the tracks on YouTube, and I think probably what we'll do is continue to drop the odd track on it and get it out through that, I think, rather than a physical release.
Okay, interesting. Now, if I remember right, you were supposed to be involved in a project with Kim Hooker called Blood Brothers that later on evolved into Bare Knuckle Messiah. Did you do any co-writing for the album? Because there's no writing credits on the Bare Knuckles Messiah album.
Oh, no. The Bare Knuckle Messiah's album was nothing to do with me. No, that was all Kim's work after he left the band. The Blood Brothers thing, I can't remember. I can't remember there being any collaboration on stuff like that. We would tend to have our own ideas and bring them to the table, but I don't remember anything really coming of that. No.
Now, Tigertailz are a very fan-oriented band who never charge fans to meet them. The meet and greets, like a lot of bands do the paid meet and greets. What made you decide to not charge fans to meet you guys?
Because personally, I think it's wrong. If you can't spare somebody the time of day to have a picture, photograph and maybe sign something for them and spare them a minute or two to have a chat with them, what's the world come to? Now, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of bands at our level make a living out of this, playing live, and these things are the meet and greet thing has become a very core part of how they survive, in the industry in terms of income and revenue at gigs. Um, but for me, I find it almost obscene that the bigger bands, particularly, and I'm talking the arena bands, do it. I think it's disgraceful myself. It's if you want to do it, then give the money to charity or something. But me, it'll never happen with this band. I mean, people are mostly respectful, and when we do it, people queue up. We tend to walk straight to the merch stand. Or we've got a gig next week, the 15th, Saturday the 15th September, for a charity function in Sheffield here in the UK for a lovely lady who passed away. That gig's the next one, and we'll be doing a meet and greet before we play on that one, because there's not quite enough time at the end for us to come down to the merch stand and meet everyone. But most people are respectful. They don't, try and hog too much of your time because there's maybe, I don't know, 20, 30, 50 other people waiting to do the same thing. But we manage it well, and like people are sensible for the most part, and it works. But yeah, I'll never charge for that ever. I don't give a shit how big this band ever became or whatever we play. I always have time to say hello to someone and have a photograph and sign something. No problem.
That's awesome.
It's inherently wrong. I just don't understand it. I don't get it. But there you go. That's just my opinion.
Now, how did Tigertailz get Love Bomb Baby in the Volkswagen time traveling GTI Edition 35 commercial?
Well, like a lot of these things, you just get the random, mail in your inbox or your message to say, hi, we're so and so, we'd like to do this. And that was one of them. I can't remember how it came in, but it was, yeah, it was as simple as that. They were running an online marketing commercial campaign for the Volkswagen Golf as it was then, whatever, 30 years or whatever it was. And they wanted to have these two guys, like as if they were traveling in time. So they were dancing around the car, and then they put different like, music and things around it. So it was that really. They just had a clear idea about how they wanted to do it, and they wanted to use our song for it, which was really cool, but a bit odd.
Now, have you ever seen any photos of Slash wearing the Tigertailz Banzai Japan 91 shirt that is displayed in the Hard Rock Cafe in Pantung?
I've heard about this. Yeah, I haven't seen him wearing that shirt. Maybe I don't know if anybody else has. I've never seen him wearing it. But yeah, a number of people have said that it was on the wall in the Hard Rock Cafe, as worn by him. And I could get it's the sort of thing you would wear, isn't it? It's you could see him wearing it, but I've never seen a picture of him wearing it. No. Maybe we should ask him.
For sure. Now, Tigertailz have tons of unreleased tracks. Six Shoot Shuffle, Rambo, Eastern Promises, Too Cool for School, Goodbye, Future is a Drug, Sleeping with the Enemy, You're on Your Own, F Off, and Smash It Up. What about box set?
Well, those I think didn't a lot of those tracks get released on the Lost Reels
I
a
think
few
Split It
years
Up
ago?
changed to Spit It Out. Am I correct with that?
Spit It Out was on there. That we did redo that for the Knives EP, which came out great. I loved that. But maybe we should go back and look at that. But again, they're actually nearly most of those tracks are the demos from the Berserk sessions when we were writing Berserk, because we wrote a whole bunch of material for that. And like if you listen to Eastern Promises, the bridge in that is actually what became Six Sex. So there was bits of those things that went into other songs. It's just the way that it works, when you start writing material. You think well, the song might not be good, but I like that riff, or I like that bridge, or I like that chorus. So you put it in something else. I don't know. I haven't really listened to it for so long, but I'm always of the opinion that if it wasn't good enough then, is it good enough now? I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
On that same topic, there's lots of unreleased Pepsi tape material, including You're on Your Own. Would that somehow maybe see the light of day?
Well, again, we went through all that with the Lost Reels CD for the label F&A, and I think we pulled out pretty much everything that was, probably worth listening to. Maybe we could go around that loop again. The trouble with Pepsi stuff, it was always so a lot of it was so kind of wacky because he had heavy influences originally in like Frank Zappa and Captain Beefheart, and then later on he was a big Nine Inch Nails fan and that sort of stuff. So I don't know, maybe we'll see.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time, Jay. That was a lot of fun.
No problem. Cheers, Ryan.